tournament football has a certain magic that is seldom seen in other sporting events. With teams and players desperate to make their mark, there can be upsets, shock results and giant killings, and the World Cup is tournament football on steroids. In a short special series, I'm going to showcase a few nations who captured the imagination of the fans in stadiums and the watching billions around the world by defying the odds and going on a famous deep run in the greatest competition in world football. I think it's safe to say that when Bulgaria rocked up to the 1994 World Cup in the USA, nobody expected much from them, and they weren't likely to be high on anyone's list of favourites. Bulgaria had never even won a game in any of the previous 5 finals that they had managed to qualify for. They fortuitously made it out of their group in Mexico '86 with 2 draws to reach the last 16 in that tournament, their best ever showing in the championships. Having been drawn in Group D with neighbours Greece, tournament debutants Nigeria and favourites Argentina, I doubt that anyone back home tipped them to make it out of the group or even to record their first win in the competition, despite having the considerable talents of Barcelona forward Hristo Stoichkov in their ranks. And fears of disappointment or even humiliation on a global scale must have been compounded after a chastening 3-0 defeat against Nigeria in Dallas. Bulgaria were unable to deal with the pace and power of the Nigerian team, with striker Rashidi Yekini in particular causing them all sorts of bother as he opened the scoring after 21 minutes. Hristo Stoichkov was then denied one of the all-time great World Cup goals, curling in a free kick which he clattered directly from the whistle, with the referee chalking it off as he had indicated by raising his arm and then pointing that it should have been taken indirectly, so another player would have had to touch the ball first. Indirect free kicks are given for things like obstruction or what the referee perceives to be dangerous play. Regardless of the reason, professional footballers should know what type of free kick the ref is indicating. Not long after this bizarre incident, goalscorer Yekini burst down the right wing to assist Daniel Amokachi to double the lead of the African nation. Yekini was again causing havoc in the second half before the ball broke to Finidi, who sent in a beautiful ball which a virtually unmarked Amukini met with a powerful diving header to heap misery on a rather hapless looking Bulgarian side who looked set to confirm predictions that they were only there to make up the numbers. This disaster may well have been the best thing that could have happened to Bulgaria, as they seemed to react to it with fire and fight and inspiration rather than let their heads drop. The Bulgarians went mental in match day 2, trouncing Greece 4-0 in Chicago, with the exceptional Stoichkov opening the scoring from the spot, following Alexis Aloukidis' handball after only 5 minutes. Despite their best efforts, the Greeks were unable to break down a resolute Bulgarian defence to find an equaliser, and they were punished as Stoichkov doubled his and his team's tally again from the spot after Sirikov was roughly taken to the ground by a perfectly executed rugby tackle from Greek stopper Elias Atmastidis. Yordan Lechkov and Daniel Borimov then put the icing and cherry on top of a fine victory. Bulgaria's first ever at a World Cup. Their third was a perfect example of what Bulgaria were all about, with Lechkov playing a neat 1-2 with Yankov, which split the Greek defence before tricking the goalkeeper, giving him the eyes and finishing low to the right. And Borimov popped up in the 93rd minute to poke home Stoichkov's thunderous free kick, which was spilled by the goalie. After 2 games, Argentina topped the group with 2 wins and 6 points, while Bulgaria and Nigeria had 3 points apiece, although the African debutants had a superior goal difference heading into the last group stage fixture, meaning Bulgaria were needing a win to ensure qualification. The final game of the group saw them come up against an Argentina side rocked by scandal and without their talisman Diego Maradona, who had been banished from the tournament after testing positive for ephedrine. The South Americans still carried some formidable threats, such as Gabriel Batistuta, who had hit a hat-trick against Greece in the group opener, Diego Simeone and Claudio Caniggia. Bulgaria were set up perfectly and showed positional discipline and defensive toughness to frustrate an Argentinian side struggling to find their groove, missing that spark of Maradona genius and frequently reduced to shots from range. The two remained in deadlock past the hour until the irrepressible Stoichkov finished off a smooth, slick and deadly counter-attack with ruthless precision and accuracy, showing his explosive pace to beat the defenders to Konstantinov's perfectly weighted pass. Just 6 minutes after this, and disaster struck for the Bulgarians, as Sanko Svitanov was shown a second yellow for a clumsy challenge and given his marching orders, although I think he was rather unfortunate to be given his first yellow, as he won the ball cleanly with a nice sliding challenge, reducing Bulgaria to 10 men with over 20 minutes left to play. Despite the numerical disadvantage, they weathered the storm of Argentinian pressure, hung on and actually managed to double their lead deep into injury time as Sirakov netted a wonderful headed goal from Balakov's corner. This goal meant that Bulgaria finished second in their group, ahead of Argentina, and would face Mexico in the round of 16. Bulgaria once again showed their danger and brilliance on the counter-attack, as Ivailo Yordanov released Hristo Stoichkov with a wonderful threaded through ball, and the iconic number 8 took a touch and rifled home an unstoppable rocket of a shot to open the scoring. 12 minutes later, a clumsy challenge from Emil Kremenliev on Luis Alves saw Bulgaria concede a penalty which Garcia Aspe duly tucked away. After a few minutes break where they had to change the whole goalpost, something I've never seen before in football, chances fell and were spurned by both sides, the best of which fell to Bulgaria, as an entertaining and action-packed first half ended in deadlock. 5 minutes into the second half, and Bulgaria fell foul of an atrocious piece of refereeing, as Emil Kremenliev was given a second yellow for, well, nothing as far as I can tell. This meant that again, the Bulgarians had to play with 10 men, only this time they weren't defending a lead but searching for a winner, and had 40 minutes of normal time left. These two couldn't be separated after normal time and a tense period of extra time, and this match went to penalties, through which Bulgaria would keep their cool while Mexico fell apart, missing 3 of their spot kicks. So it was on to the quarters, an uncharted territory for Bulgaria, where their fairy tale was sure to come to an end as they were set to face defending champions Germany, who possessed a mighty strong side, boasting the likes of Lothar Matthäus, Rudi Völler and Jurgen Klinsmann. The first half saw the two teams going for it in the early stages, although the Germans failed to really test Mikhailov. The most clear-cut chances fell in the lap of the industrious Bulgarians, who pressed and harried, frustrated and bullied the Germans at times, intercepting slack passes and punishing heavy touches. A great piece of Lechkov ball winning saw him slide in Hristo Stoichkov, who cut the ball back to a wide open Balakov, who simply had to finish but could only muster a scuffed shot against the left stick. Halfway through the first period, a wonderful chance to open the scoring came the way of Jurgen Klinsmann, who so very nearly pulled off a wonderfully unorthodox effort, where it looked like he started off to go for a scorpion kick, then changed his mind as he judged the flight of the ball and met the cross with a diving / falling header. Only the feet of Mikhailov denied him a fine goal. This seemed to galvanise Germany, who grew into the game and started creating more opportunities, the best of which a belting shot which Trifon Ivanov bravely blocked with his manhood, forcing the stricken defender to be stretchered off, although he thankfully recovered. Barring a rasping Yankov effort which almost caught out the German keeper and a Klinsmann volley which whistled over the bar, that was the last incident of note in a fantastically frenzied first 45 minutes, which ended with the sides locked at 0-0, maybe a fair reflection of a closely fought contest. Less than 5 minutes after the ref got the second period underway, Bulgaria conceded their second penalty in as many games, Lechkov being penalised for a late challenge on Klinsmann. Matthäus was given the honours and he made no mistake, firing Germany into the lead with a fine spot kick. With the Bulgarians on the brink of elimination and somewhat fortunate not to be trailing by more than one, they needed a moment of inspiration, and in the 75th minute they got it from the most predictable of sources. Hristo Stoichkov equalised, sending a marvellous free kick over the wall and into the back of the net, as Bodo Elnyer stood rooted to the spot. Less than 2 minutes later, and a nation was sent into raptures when Zlatko Yankov beat his man and clipped in a wonderful ball right onto the balding head of the diving Lechkov. Bulgaria held on for the remaining 10 minutes or so to see out a famous and unexpected victory over one of the favourites. They were through to the semis, and the people back home were unified in their joy and disbelief. And whatever happened, the boys in America had made their country proud and shocked the world. There was no time to reflect on this stupendous triumph, as they were on to the semi-finals and within touching distance of eternal glory. Only Italy stood in the way of the final. It was a tense and tight first half in a sweltering giant stadium where both defences were on top in the opening exchanges. Just after the 20-minute mark, and the supreme quality of Roberto Baggio shone through as Bulgaria fell asleep from a throw-in and allowed a criminal amount of time and space for the Italian to maraud into and unleash a curler low into the corner. Gliazzurri continued to threaten, with the long shots of Albertini causing particular concern, and the Bulgarians looked really vulnerable for the first time since the opening game, with things also not clicking up front for the plucky Balkan nation. So it wasn't a surprise when 4 minutes after the opener, the Bulgarians, who had been given warnings of the kind of ball Albertini was looking to play to Baggio, were sliced open by a glorious ball over the top of the defence, which Baggio pounced on and finished with an accurate angled strike, again low, but this time in the opposite corner. The Bulgarians were all over the place and couldn't deal with the vision, speed and creativity of the Italian attack. But then, on the stroke of half-time, Nasko Sirakov decided to take matters into his own hands, channeled his inner Maradona and ran through half the Italian team before being wiped out in the penalty box to win his team a penalty and hand them a vital lifeline. Stoichkov stepped up and rolled in his 6th goal of the competition, 2-1. Bulgaria weren't dead and buried just yet. In the second half, the Bulgarians attacked, as they had to if they were to find an equaliser, and looked to be unlucky not to be given a penalty for a foul on Konstantinov on the hour mark, with the Bulgarian himself being booked for simulation. I'm still not sure what I make of this one. Perhaps it would have been a bit soft to give. Bulgaria seemed to have sorted themselves out defensively and looked to be much more able to deal with the various attacking threats of the Italians. The defence of Gliazzurri also held firm and resolute against the building Bulgarian pressure. Later in the half, Bulgaria had another penalty claim, this time one of the stone wall variety, as Costa Curta blocked Konstantinov's cross with his hand. Clear as day, intentional, he bats the ball, pushes it out of the way. How the refs missed this one is beyond me. The rest of the half passed without significant incident, and Bulgaria, despite their best efforts, were unable to add the Stoichkov spot kick, and they were knocked out of the tournament, paying the penalty for a slack first half defensive performance, although not to take away from the inspiration and genius shown by Baggio and Albertini. Bulgaria finished 4th at USA 94, after a 4-0 mauling in the 3rd place playoffs by Sweden. The less we say about that, the better. But they had brought joy and hope to their nation, and garnered the respect and praise of football fans the world over due to the way they went about their business. They worked together as a team and fought for each other. They were calm, composed and tough in defence, and also had the languid elegance of Joran Lechkov and the dazzling genius of Hristo Stoichkov as a brutal and beautiful outlet in attack. For a small and impoverished nation whose football system was and still is in a bit of a state, this really was the stuff of fairy tales.